Hello, my name is Roberto Palasin. I'm the overall coordinator of My Corridor. My Corridor really has the approach of My Corridor is underpinned by four key aspects. First one is just to define the disruptive nature of mass. The second one is to look into the practical implementation of TM 2.0, that is Traffic Management 2.0, which is the traffic management protocol developed by ERTICO, the European Intelligent Transport Systems Organization. We also, one of the third underpinning aspect is looking at the full definition development and testing of the integrated architecture for mass, effectively the back office and the front office. And as an example, some of the key components or kind of the key characteristic of that would be the one-stop shop and the mobility tokens for integrated tickets for cross-border. So that's something that is core to this project as well. And again, excuse me, last but not least, provide some evidence-based recommendations in terms of end-user acceptability, business models, and the integration of the different ecosystems, incentives, and definitely policy, privacy, and anything to do with the legal aspects of mass is something that is very, very unique of My Corridor, together with the cross-border aspects. So these are one of the unique characteristics of the work that we've done. And to our knowledge, we are one of the few, if not the only research team in Europe looking at this type of aspects. So really interesting stuff from my perspective. So we've done a lot of things in the last 3.5 years, but something that is relevant to what I'm going to explain to you in a second is the fact that we have to develop the full operational and fully functioning app. That although it's a research app, research mass proposition is still mass proposition, even if it's research, as I said. So that includes developing a service registration tool for service providers that very easily can just log in online, provide their information, and crucially their API, so we can bolt it into our mobility ecosystem. And also in terms of the users, a front office app, My Corridor app. You can see there a snapshot the right-hand side of your screen, which is fully functional on Android and iOS. So if you go to the Apple Store or the Google Play, you can download it now and have a feel about how it looks like and how it works. So we have deployed all this in 5 different pilot sites. You can see there in Greece, in Rome, in Italy, Salzburg, Prague, Amsterdam, pilot sites. Unfortunately, monitoring periods coincide with a global pandemic, so it means that there was in many occasions, many cases for long periods of from sections of that period of March, October. Some country national restrictions meant that it was not possible to travel a lot, so public transport was about minimum, and there's no mass without public transport. But nevertheless, I'm incredibly proud of the work that the team has done, particularly the pilot teams, in persevering and actually deploying these pilots, even in these very adverse circumstances for traveling and for public transport, and also the European Commission for allowing us to do so. So on those conditions, we managed to log 158 single users and nearly 900 trips, which is a great sample size for research and for basing evidence into our conclusions later on. So we also developed explore and developed some deployment scenarios for mass in Europe based on so we have 4 different scenarios that we have defined, which it will in turn create with the core of business models. And those scenarios vary between whether the mass proposition is private or public-led and what is deployed on an urban or a suburban rural environment. So we have perform a stakeholder consultation to understand a bit better these scenarios and to define and to develop their characteristics further, and that would be through focus groups, interviews, and roundtables in different locations, including the UK, which wasn't planned to start with. So giving more added value, more range of views. You won't be able to read any of the legend, but doesn't matter. It's just an example. I'll talk you through it of some of the things some of the outcomes and the results that we got on this stakeholder consultation. For instance, regarding the benefits the organization's stakeholders will see to be part of an ecosystem such as My Corridor, that is a mass proposition with roaming capability. And the biggest benefit identified there, which is right in the middle of the screen, is to do with enhancing the connectivity between modes, which is very interesting. And that is followed by a number of very similarly considered benefits on both on the right-hand side of your screen and towards the left, which is to do with maintaining existing customers, and actually increasing getting new customers on issues such as patronage, trustworthiness, and making travel more efficient for the mobility impaired. Similarly, we asked a similar question in terms of impact for 3 to 5 years, and the biggest impact that was acknowledged and recognized or identified is towards the right-hand side of the screen, is the change in data sharing. That is how we handle data, followed by issues around customers, so in business models. So again, value chain proposition, partnerships to include the value, the business value, and so on and so forth. So clearly, value of the business is something that is seen as a big impact by being mass. Less so things like staffing, for instance. In terms of some concluding thoughts on the work that we've been doing, I appreciate this is just a snapshot. Mass means different things for different people. That's clear. There's no universal description or definition of mass. Equally, there is no, in the same way that there is no universal business model. There are different propositions can work in different locations, and it's the local policy, the urban form, and the cultural aspects that really will define this. Technical integration, I would say, is the only way, but certainly the best way to create a mobility ecosystem that works. And we've got evidence that the smallest glitch, the smallest malfunctioning on the technical side of things, map doesn't work, or my mobility token doesn't appear, ticket is not recognized, the trip is not done as expected, users will give up. There's very little attention on that front. So it's very important. Incentives do have a role to play. Last but not least, as I said, one of the unique aspects of our project was looking at policy, privacy, and really similar. And we've got evidence that they are key aspects. These are key aspects that will shape how mass is deployed. For instance, in terms of third-party reselling of tickets for cross-border. Okay. So there are quite a number of areas for future research that we have identified. Here are just an example of 3 of them, which is the development of the technical protocols and guidelines for developing of mass. And some of our colleagues are working on that in the consortium, already members of working groups. The legal and GDPR aspects are very important to remove barriers to implement deploying mass in Europe. And it is the expanding the common core principles of the different scenarios that we'll be looking at. Market introduction is already happening in terms of mass. We move on from when we started this project in terms of mass was very conceptual to a mass that is being deployed now. So there are still things to do. Mass is in its infancy, but there is evidence that market uptake is taking place. The consortium members are doing a lot of take up on the work that we've done, depending on the organization type. So some of them are particularly the pilot organizations, or those that were involved in the pilots are taking the lessons learned from that to implement further mass solutions in their locations. Some of our other partners are members of the working groups developing the technical aspects, and organizations like mine, University, Newcastle University in the UK. We are really deploying further in the research and getting more knowledge in some other aspects related to mass, so for instance, micromobility and mass for the youth and the young people. None of this, of course, could happen with the EU. I think the EU funding, what is done is accelerated understanding of some of the issues that normally are overlooked. So in particular, privacy and regulation, I think has been a very, very important aspect of this funding. More information, mycorridor.eu. Thank you very much.